Hello and welcome to the most exciting part of the week for all you strategy nerds out there. That's not an insult, I am one too. We open up with a lovely little bit of artwork, which sort of looks a bit like colonialism. We got a Spanish ship over there on the right-hand side, the beginnings of an settlement that is growing. I think you can't see it, but I can shift it over a second. Some sugar there on the right-hand side is what I think that is. But yeah, cool artwork. I like it. Let us get into the 7th Tinto Talks, where we will talk about really super secret stuff that's hidden behind the codename Project Caesar. There is not a single soul that is reading this that is under any sort of illusion. We know this is EU5, let's be honest. Today, we'll look into what makes up the economy in Project Caesar. Obviously, we'll go into much more detail on some of the aspects later at Tinto Talks. Right now, through some incomes and expenses of a country in the game. Are we going to be doing Spain due to the aforementioned ships and such? With balancing incomes and expenses, of course, there are sliders. The return of the slider. Let's go. Having some buttons just for a few possible options for taxes or expenses like an imperative is not really fitting for a grand strategy game with deep economical gameplay. We're getting sliders. The return of the slider. Let's go. If we start with income, you have some trade-related incomes, which is a system we'll delve to in early May. Looking forward to that. So far, the only thing we know about trade is that markets are going to be a thing, and provinces or locations will be able to move between markets depending on unknown factors. We know this because of I guess just a single sentence in a previous Tinto talk. So yeah, we don't really know much about trade, but hey, we will learn in early May. As well as diplomatically related income. You also gain gold from provinces, not locations. Okay, so income on the province level that sell surplus food so they cannot store it in their local market. Neither of these you directly control with any slider, though. Okay. The bulk of most countries' income will come from taxes, though. Interesting, because that's not the case in EU4 for most countries. I think like only France can get more tax income than trade, early game at least. Usually it's production and trade, so interesting. Taxes in Project Caesar are really different than before. Than before in what, Johan? Before in what? Are we talking about before in a previous game in this series that you can't name, otherwise you would give away the ghost? Maybe. First of all, every estate has a possible tax base, a concept we'll delve into much more detail next week. Okay. This you can attempt to levy tax from them, I assume. But every estate has a maximum tax you can take from them, which depends on your laws and their privileges and how much power they have in your country. The higher the tax you take from them, the lower their satisfaction equilibrium becomes. Some examples of tax affecting things include the Catholic religion, which limits the taxes on the clergy, and also auxilium et consilium, estate privilege for the nobles, which reduces the taxes they pay. Okay, so are we taxing provinces, or we're just taxing the estates? Are the estates our tax collectors? In essence. Actually, that does make sense. If the estates are the tax collectors, that's basically how most countries functioned in this period, and it was only after more absolutist governments came into play that the estates were sort of phased out and taxes got directly collected by the crown and its appendages, let's say. So yeah, now that makes sense, and maybe there will be a system to take tax away from the take tax collection away from the estates in a later period. That'd be quite nice. Finally, something that has existed in some older games, we have minting. Now, what's that? Minting is the possibility to get more money by printing more coins. It just has a slight drawback of increasing your inflation the more you do it. Okay, we have sliders. We have goddamn sliders. Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. Although I say it's beautiful, it's not really beautiful. Like I'm not a big fan of the UI style yet, but that's something that will more than likely change before release, so I'm not too worried about it. But the fact that we have sliders, very cool, very interesting, quite like. So here we have the possibility to tax the commoners quite a bit more, which makes sense, of course. If you recall Victoria 2, while you could, of course, get a large amount of taxes from the various strata within your country, generally the most amount of money that you're getting is coming from the lowest class, because there's just so many more of them. So, expenses. What are we spending all of our money on? We all love gaining gold, but sadly we also have to spend it, and while we can reduce some of the spending, we cannot completely avoid all of it. First of all, we have the cost of the court. This is something that is directly correlated to the economic base of your country, and if you spend less gold than expected, your legitimacy or equivalent applicable government power will decrease over time, and the more you spend, the more legitimacy can increase. There are advances, laws, and other things that impact how much you need to spend there. So it's like inverse corruption. Basically, you want to be spending just enough to keep that legitimacy topped up, and if you spend too little and it starts dripping down, maybe you want to increase that. Maybe if you're at war, you can lower it temporarily. But that seems to be the thought that I'm having here. We have the cost of your standing army and navy, where spending less reduces their fighting capability. This is nothing new to the Grand Strategy game, so you're not sure why you need to mention it here. Makes sense. Fort maintenance is another common economic expense from our games, which is here as well. If you don't pay, garrisons don't tend to stick around. Is this going to be a slider? Spending less to get less garrison rather than zero garrison? Would be quite nice. Culture. It's an entirely new concept which will become available in the Age of Renaissance, where you can invest money to get something while impacting your prestige. Interesting. Okay. What could that be? What possibly could that be? I don't know. You can also decide how much you wish to spend on your colonial charters, which is a new system we'll talk about later this year. So this is a system in EU4, or rather, spending money on colonialism is a thing in EU4, where you literally do have a slider that lets you spend more or less on colonization. And all it does is slow down the growth rate. Which is obviously not how we're going to have it here, because colonial charters certainly is something very, very different to put a colonist in this place and wait until settler amount reaches 1,000 and then you have an province. But yeah, if this is this different, then that's a good thing, of course. Finally, the last thing you can impact with a slider. Wait, so all of these are actually sliders. Okay, fort maintenance slider. I like that. That's a cool idea. That is a cool idea. If all of these are sliders, big fan. Okay. Final last thing you can impact with a slider is your investment in stability. The cost for how much your investments are needed depends on the size of your country, with different laws and societal values impacting it as well. Stability in itself ranges from plus 100 to minus 100. Okay, so that's different from Imperator, which was 0 to 100. So we're getting an extra 100 range. Okay, and it will decay towards 0 on its own. There are two other ways to impact your stability gain, beside investing gold as mentioned here. One of them relates to the cabinet system, which we don't know about yet, but another is a more long-term impact of how your country's built up, as it's based on how many clergy popes you have of your state religion compared to the total population. So stability seems to be very having a more religiously homogenous country will be very helpful, though you also need to have a strong amount of clergy. I imagine construction of churches is probably going to increase the amount of clergy you have. Okay. There are other expenses you can see below, but one important thing to mention is that provinces that lack food will try to buy it from the local... Oh my gosh. There are... Okay. Is this not basically confirming some kind of goods system? Like, having food is localized and is able to be sold on the market. Are we gonna get some... Like, that's above the level where Imperator was. That's very interesting. Okay. Also, depending on what year this is, expenses of 67 seems, from EU4 point of view, very, very high. That seems very high indeed. And also, look at the naval maintenance. 28 ducats on the Navy, while the Army is only costing 1 ducat. That's very interesting. Not spending anything on stability is making it decay a little bit. Okay. But yeah, I know numbers aren't final. Of course numbers aren't final. But this seems to be very much a different economic system that we're going to have to get used to. Because if you imagine, right, you look at Victoria 2 and your incomes and expenditures are often hundreds and thousands, right? Tens of thousands if you're doing really well. In EU4, if you're making 1,000 ducats a month, you are a hegemon. Literally a hegemon. If you make £1,000 a month in Victoria 2, are you even that rich? Let's be honest, are you? Not really. Honestly, that's pretty low income. They just work on a completely different scale. But let's have a look. Army maintenance is there. Hiring mercenaries is also on here. Paying interest makes sense. Trade expense. What? Okay. We don't know what trade expense is, so that is an expense as well. So I really think we're getting some kind of goods system here. Diplomacy can be things like war reparations, can be things like subsidies. So not much to read into there. Buying food. This can't be... This must be just a country level image, right? So... Are you buying food from other countries here? Is that what we're seeing? Because it kind of feels that way. And then, of course, hiring mercenaries there. An exploration cost. I'm quite glad that this is not a... I don't want to see the same system that we have in EU4 where it's mission-based. I would like to see it be a case of you paying for an exploration and then they go out and they explore and they come back and say, look at all these maps we discovered. That's what I would like to see. But yeah, I don't know if I would say that it would be an expense rather than a lump sum payment, perhaps, but we'll see. Maybe we should cut down on our fleet. Maybe we don't need all those forts. Our standing army of 200 brave footmen is enough. 200 footmen? For one whole ducat. Wait, 200? Okay, more confirmation, more things we've just learned. 200 is not something you would see in EU4. The minimum, the absolute floor for the size of a single unit is 1,000. You cannot get lower without having either sustained casualties, in which case they will upgrade to 1,000, or if you've just bought one of those special units that start with 50 men and reinforce over time, which again, they reinforce to 1,000. This is confirmation, hard goddamn confirmation of a new military order, really. Yes, this was sneaky, Johan. This was very, very sneaky what you did here, and I'm all for it. Next week, we'll talk more about how the tax base functions, how the food system works, very, very hyped for this, and other related issues. I am so here for this. I'm so here for this. So, confirmed in this dev diary, food system. We kind of already knew that already, but food being a good that is bought and sold, not something we knew. That's confirmed. Confirmed. Armies... While we knew there was a levy and a standing army system, now we know that the smallest unit of men is not 1,000. We don't know how many it is, or even if they function in units. Remember, CK2 did not. This is something we have learned. This makes me very excited, especially because I really quite dislike the way that in EU4, to have a full back row of cannons is 40,000 somethings. Obviously, it's not 40,000 cannons. It's also more than likely not 40,000 men manning, a bunch of cannons. It's just kind of nothing tangible, right? I think that having, your army have, we've brought 56 guns to this battle. Like, that's a lot of guns. That's an amount of guns that Napoleon would be pretty chill and happy about bringing to a battle. So I would very much like more accurate numbers when it comes to, artillery, cannons, guns. So I feel like it's obviously not confirmation that will be possible, but it certainly makes it more possible than the standard 1,000 unit system that we currently have. Very, very pleased. And yeah, Slider's confirmed. Very, very happy. We are a Slider enjoyer in this household. So, yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Please leave them in the comment section below. I will make a video in a couple of days looking at the replies and responses that Johan has made for this. He's actually made one already. Let's just have a sneaky wee peek. Wait, this is Parbellion. According to the docs, the only thing that can save me is seeing the map of Carpathia in Project Caesar. Yes, for sure, that would help. Anyway, he is very prolific and writes a lot of responses. I will go over these in a few days, couple of days, and we'll go from there. But I'm going to end here. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to keep up to date with Project Caesar, hit the subscribe button. It's free, it's simple, not a problem with it, and then let's continue learning about what's almost certainly EU5 going forward. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.